That's right. Do not believe all the spirits. This is the chapter they deal with. There will be false Christs and false prophets. We have already gone to the definition of prophet is in accordance with Spiritism. We have covered what is it that Jesus Christ meant when he stated there would be false Christs and false prophets. We understand the differentiation that he makes between the laws and the prophets. And I think all those definitions are important for us to fully understand the chapters of this chapter. But for sake of time, and I have time to go through all those definitions. And this next item that we're going to see now here is especially important for us spiritists and spiritualists who understand the interaction between the two planes of our existence, the interaction between incarnate and discarnate, and another evidence of the understanding of the disciples of Christ in regard to this communication is very clear in the statement of John. Do not believe every spirit, but check if they are from God. It's a very clear statement that the interaction between the two planes of existence not only is possible, it does exist, and it exists throughout the existence of humanity. It's not limited to ostensive mediums. For we all are mediums in our limited abilities, but we all interact with these kind of spirits. We all receive guidance, advices from the spirits, but not all guidance, not all suggestions are good. And we can repeat that a million times after every sentence, you know. A good fruit only produces good trees, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruits. So it's indispensable that we know the origin. Where is it coming from to give it its proper validity, and see if we should or should not follow those guidance, those advices. So it's item 6, do not believe all spirits.
Okay. Do not believe all spirits. Number 6. Dearly beloved, do not believe all spirits, but test whether the spirits are from God. For many false prophets have appeared in the world. Number 7. Spirit phenomenon, far from giving credibility to false Christs and false prophets, as some people love to say, have much to the contrary, come to deal them a final blow. Do not ask Spiritism for prodigies or miracles, since it formally declares that it does not perform them. Just as physics, chemistry, astronomy, and geology have revealed the laws of the physical world, Spiritism has revealed other unknown laws that govern relations between the corporeal and the spirit world, in which are laws of nature as much as are the laws of science. By providing the explanation for a certain order of phenomena that have been incomprehensible until now, Spiritism destroys what still remained in the rim of the extraordinary. This way, those who would be tempted to exploit such phenomenon for their own profit and to pass themselves off as messiahs of God cannot abuse people's credulity for long and will soon be unmasked. Moreover, as has been stated, these phenomena per se prove nothing. Omission is proven by their moral effects, which are not given to just anyone to produce. This is one of the results of the development of the Spiritist science. By scrutinizing the cause of certain phenomena, it lifts the veil of many mysteries. Those who prefer the darkness to the light are the only ones interested in combating it. But the truth is like the sun, it dissipates the densest fog. Spiritism has revealed another category much more dangerous than false Christs and false and prophets. It is found not among humans, but among discarnates, that of deceiving, critical and proud and pursued, learned spirits who have passed from the earth to the spirit world and have adored themselves with venerated names in order to seek, thanks to the marks with which they have covered themselves, to give credence to the most bizarre and absurd ideas. Before mediumistic interactions were known, such spirits exerted their actions in a less ostensive way, through the inspiration or through unconscious hearing or speaking mediumship. The number of those who at various times, especially as of late, have presented themselves as certain ancient prophets, as Christ, as Mary, the mother of Christ, and even as God, is considerable. John's letters warns against them when he says, "Dearly beloved, do not believe all spirits, but test whether the spirits are from God. For many false prophets had appeared in the world." Spiritism proves the means to test them by pointing out the characteristics by which good spirits can be recognized, characteristics that are always moral and never material. It is in the distinguishing between good and evil spirits that these words of Jesus can be especially applied. The quality of a tree can be recognized by its fruit. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. Spirits are judged by the quality of their deeds, just as a tree by the quality of its fruit.
Thank you, Sarada. You guys can hear me well?
Yes.
I had a little problem with starting my computer this morning. So again, for us, spiritists, for us who are engaged in this, a more active interaction with the spiritual world, you have to be very good in the process of identification of spirit, using the methodology, scientific methodology proposed by Kardec in the Medium's book that we went over and we'll go over soon again, as next week we'll start the Medium's book all over again. And again, everyone is invited to start from the very beginning, from the introduction next week. And as I always say, is that the study of mediumship is equally important for the mediums as for those who are associated with the mediums, because the message received from the spirits through the mediums, it spreads out through us who are associated with those mediums. So not only we, the mediums, need to be careful and with our make identification or a reasonable, and again, reasonable judgment, because we do judge. We're gonna have to judge if the messages they're receiving carry value or not, if you're going to apply or not. It is judgment that I have to see with reason and following the suggestion of John the Evangelist here. Check if they are from God. That doesn't mean God, it's from God. If they carry the moral teachings, and you can use as a guideline the topic that I study right now in the Spirit's book, the moral laws. See if what you're receiving from the spirits are in accordance with all the set of moral laws that you read in the Spirit's book. See if they defy, if they go against, and if they do, perhaps we should not use them, perhaps should not apply them in our lives. But again, it's a personal choice, right? And I do suggest that we review those moral laws more frequently every time that we are debating in this, especially these days that ideology is so much in vogue that, you know, some people going too far to the right, other people too far to the left. We can use these guidelines and the moral laws as something to bring us back, not to the right, not to the left, but above, as we should seek to be. The way of the middle is not between right and left, but it's at the middle, above right and left. One of the arguments of those who are against Spiritism, especially in the beginning, well, it's still the beginning, but right at the very beginning of the introduction of Spiritism was exactly that we are open room, we are giving the floor to spirits to come and do whatever they want and then spread their crazy ideas to us. And that's a very dangerous thing that we need to be avoid. And the argument from this spirit gives to us here is exactly the opposite. That Spiritism as a science eliminates the risks by teaching us how to use this tool as mediumship, as something to propel us forward, as Erasto tells us, to teach us, to evolve us morally. And Spiritism eliminates the voodoos, eliminates the mysticism, the rituals, and represent facts that can be actually verified, as in the book Heaven and Hell, which all those communications that could be verified. That those are indeed spirits that lived with us, that Kardec did the work of going and do the research and verify that those spirits communicating in that book actually was what they said they were, what they were living on earth. So Spiritism as a doctrine, as a science, clarify things, eliminates the mystical, eliminates the black magic, eliminated the extraordinary, eliminates the miracles as something that it is not in accordance with the natural laws. Easily eliminate all that. If it happens, it is in accordance with natural laws. Now, do we understand the natural laws? Do we know all of them? So you want to use the definition of miracle as a phenomenon that our science does not still understand? We accept. Outside that, there is no miracle. There is anything that is extraordinary. Everything that is supernatural, if it happens, is in accordance with natural laws, physical laws, moral laws, especially physical laws here, I'm sorry. And again, another example that I always use is in the history of Brazil, there was this person who came from Portugal and was trying to find the emerald and end up somewhere in Minas Gerais, in the state of Minas Gerais, looking for the emeralds, could not find it. And he was convinced that the Indians knew where the emerald was, but it was hidden from him. So he took some liquid from his bag, put in a cup, could get all the Indians around him and say, if you do not tell me where the emeralds are, I will set all your waters and on fire. And he lit that liquid, and the liquid caught on fire, and the spirits thought that he was a miracle man, a man that was able to transform, to set the water on fire, because the Indians did not know of alcohol. The Indians did not know that alcohol is flammable and could catch on fire. For them, it was a miracle. For us, it would be a joke, because we have the understanding, we have the knowledge. So when Jesus transformed the water into wine, it had to be in accordance with natural laws, of physical laws that we do not understand. Was able to manipulate elements, I would guess over here, of cosmic fluid that we do not understand yet. You want to call it miracle? Go ahead, but keep in mind that eventually we will understand how it happens. We will have to wait until you reach the level of Christ. I don't know. I don't think so. But that is for us to know eventually. And beyond the pseudo Christs, and we know that before Jesus there was men, and after Jesus there was men who come and declare themselves to be the messiahs, right? Jesus Christ was not the first one who claimed to be the promised messiahs. There are others in the past, and most of them had that bad outcome as well. And if they have to Jesus, perhaps right now in Israel, there are somebody may claim themselves to be the messiahs, right? So there are always false Christs, and as long as we are uneducated, there will those who will try to profit from our ignorance and declare themselves to be what they are not. And there will always be false prophets. But beyond the incarnate, who come to present themselves as what they are not, in seeking some kind of profit. More dangerous yet, Spiritism declared to us, are those who are without a physical body, are those who present us ideas, ideologies, without having a face, without being palpable. Those are even more dangerous because they can present themselves any way they want. They can call themselves any way and any name they want. One time, Chico Xavier presented a message to André Luiz, the spirit, and he asked André Luiz, said, André Luiz, Chico asked, this message over here, it said that it's from you, it's signed André Luiz. And the answer from André Luiz was, there are many André Luiz out there. We need to know how to identify which message really comes from André Luiz, because there's a lot of spirits out there who could provide the message through a medium, or psychography, and sign underneath André Luiz. Is it? Spiritism, in the medium's book, give us the guidelines of making those identifications with reason, with a high probability of getting it right. So there are those who present themselves, and it says over here, there are a considerable number who in various epochs and above all in recent times have presented themselves as some of the old prophets, as Christ, as the Virgin Mary, and even God. John warns against these spirits. This is extremely relevant, especially these days today, in which the acceptance of of the communication of the spirits become more spread out, we should expect that there will be more and more and more and more individuals who will try to profit from it. As Kardec tells us, there will always be someone there intellectually smart enough to try to take advantage of all situations, right? That's how Francois Laporte invented the canned food, between the fight of abiogenesis and biogenesis. And he found out that if we use the process of heating and cooling things, you can eliminate the risk of things going bad. He said, he was a baker. He said, I don't care who is right, who is wrong, but if that's true, I'm right to make money out of it. And a baker used a fight between biogenesis and abiogenesis and invented the canned goods. There will always be smart people there to take advantage of situations and use for the good or for the bad. In that case, it was for the good. As mediumship spreads, as mediumship becomes more accepted, as the understanding between the communication of the two sides of our existence spreads out, there will be those who take advantage of it, not always for the good. And if a spirit comes in and sign at the end of a message, Virgin Mary, Mother of Christ, there will be those who will believe without hesitation, without some degree of speculation, some degree of research to see if it makes any sense, and may become a very dangerous situation. And the most important tool that we have to use is to look for the moral teachings on those messages, moral teachings on those guidelines presented by the spirits. And again, my suggestion to use the chapter deals with moral laws in the Spirits book, and make sure that it is incompatible with that. Maybe everything is beautiful and nice over there, but then you look at one aspect of it and say, well, it seems like that this message displays a special, one of the human races above others, or is proving gender, one gender above other. And you go in and check the chapter that deals with equality or the laws of equality, you say, whoa, this is not in accordance with the laws. So that the whole thing may be good and valuable up to that point. When you get to that point and it says that discriminate in any way, being gender, race, sexual orientation, it already loses credibility because it goes contrary to the moral laws. So the use of moral values is the most efficient tool for us to separate what comes from God, in the words of John, and what does not. And if you look at the teachings of Christ for those 3 years with us, we're not going to find in it teachings regard material things. It's all about moral values. So mediumship with Jesus should be all about moral values. Erastus, again, Erastus in the Spirit's book, leaves clear the only reason, the only objective of mediumship is to upgrade humankind morally. The rest is up to us. And that is the most valuable and important tool. And again, some of the spirits out there are extremely eloquent, have absolutely domain of the oratoria, knows how to be deceiving to the point that we need to be extremely, extremely careful. And the greatest tool, again, what is the moral value of this? Is this in accordance what we understand as the moral laws. If one aspect contradicts those moral laws, then likely it's not from God. Comments?
Yeah, and always remembering what Kardec said, that it's better to reject 10 truths than to accept one lie. So whenever in doubt, put aside the idea for the moment, and because if it's true, it will come back. You will learn and you will understand eventually. But a lie can cause a lot of damage, as we are seeing nowadays.
One more thing that's important here, and I forgot to mention, is the value of the message.
Right, because we live in.
I'm sorry.
Continue. I was talking. You didn't hear me, Elmo?
No, yeah, now I hear you.
Because I was talking about the to accept it's dangerous to accept one lie, and it's better to reject the 10 truths, what Kardec told us, right?
Yeah.
And I think I've been seeing a lot of this lately, a lot of these communications that presumably comes from Jesus or from God or from Virgin Mary, and there is a whole how do you call that, set of beliefs that is out there, a series of books and everything it's claimed to be written by Jesus himself, and you read, and there is a lot of things that you can see that they are true, but there is a lot of things that are, first, shallow information, and second, a lot of things related to our physical life on earth, and the messages from the superior spirits, from the elevated spirits, are always to upgrade our moral knowledge. So they are not going to deal with troubles that we have in our physical lives, in a sense of giving us direct instructions on how to deal with things in our physical life. They will give us moral teachings that we could apply to our physical lives to improve the quality of our physical lives. But again, it is widespread. We've been seeing this everywhere. That as communications, as I almost said, communication with the spiritual world becomes more accepted and more mainstream. Not that where people are not condemned or burned at stake or things like that. So the recommendation that the spirits gives us is, we don't possess all knowledge, we don't have all the understanding. If an information that comes to us is an information that we are not sure what to do with it, let's put it aside and wait, right? Because it will come back. I mentioned this many times. Every time I go back to study the Spirit's book, every time I study to prepare myself for the Thursday's study, every week I find something new. And I'm reading the Spirit's book for the 10th time. And because there are things that it didn't call my attention last time or the other 9 times, because they were not, I was not evolved enough to understand, or morally or intellectually. So it will come back, like it's coming back. These teachings will come back. They come back, and then we are able to understand. But if you follow a lie, it can be very dangerous. It can cause a lot of harm. And unfortunately, we are seeing this out there, right? People that believe in lies that are spread out by the the different media sources today, the different ways people communicate, and people are even only listening to what they think is true, and not taking the care to analyze the information they receive, to verify different thoughts, and this all becomes very very dangerous for society as a whole, for our evolutionary path, because it can prevent us from moving forward. So important here. We don't need to understand or accept what comes to us. If it doesn't make sense, if it's doubtful, let's leave it, and let's wait for another opportunity. Let's wait for our moral and intellectual progress to be able to analyze again the informations that come to us, to see if we can make better sense of it. Okay.
One of the things I'm going to add here is in terms of the quality of masters that we receive, we are not talking about in eloquence. We're not talking about of really hard, difficult words that we need to have a dictionary next to us for every sentence. It is a fact that most of the books that you read are very well written, use a very proper means of communication of the language that drives us crazy sometimes, that we need to use a dictionary to understand the whole message, because the more evolved the spirit will present us a more evolved means of communication. And in this way, they propel us forward and educating ourselves more and more. When Kardec, Divaldo Pereira Franco asked Joana de Anjos if she could kind of make those messages a little bit easier for the people to understand, because they're complaining that the Portuguese was very eloquent, very classical. She said, no. We put ourselves in a position of educator. As an educator is an educator. Educates 100%. So it's the teacher cannot lower to the level of the student, but the teacher must to rise the students to the level of the teachers. So those who know more, they don't have to limit their ability to communicate, but they will guide us to elevate ourselves to the meaning of better ways of communicating. So they are able to, and why is it better? Because in one paragraph, using a vast lexicon, they are able to say things that otherwise it would take 3, 4, 5 pages. They can do that in one paragraph. It makes it harder for us to break down that paragraph into 4 or 5 pages to get the whole message. Yes, it does. But it elevates us. It makes us better. It makes us better communicator as well. But the quality of a message that you see is coming from God not necessarily requires the eloquence of a very refined lexicon, language, and whatever languages is spoken, English or Portuguese or whatever, or Chinese or Arabic, but is in the message itself and what is it teaching us, and basically is in the moral value of it. And again, as Ron has said here, one lie in a long message make that whole message of not value. Should not take it. One entire message that appears very nice, and then you see that there is discrimination of any source that is discriminating on based on gender, sexual orientation, the race, age, or any kind of, it loses its value, it loses credibility. And if you disagree with what I'm saying, go back to the book that we are reading right now. Go back to the moral laws and see what it says right there in terms of laws of equality. And if that's not enough, go through the whole gospel of Christ. Find the need for the teachings of Christ any discrimination based on anything. If you do find, please present it to me, because you're not going to find it. So if it's from God, it's from Jesus. It is from Jesus, it's from the books of the codification that are absolutely convinced and sure, then it carries value. It may be written in a very simple form, it may be written in a very complex form, but it carries the moral values in accordance with the teachings of Christ, then it has other value. If it goes against it, then it carries no value. And that's what John means. Check the spirits to see if they are from God. Okay.
And again, right? What the famous is it useful? How is it, Elmo? Is it useful? It is.
It's from Socrates.
Yeah.
Wonderful suggestion is speak only, and a phrase, a paraphrase only here. Speak only if it's the truth, if it's good, and if it's useful. All three things together, because something may be good, maybe not be useful at that time, right? And if it's not truth, then that's out of it. But if you try to speak using this advice and know if it's true, if it's good, if it's useful that in that particular moment, we will avoid wonderful opportunity of keeping our mouth shut when we should.
Yeah, sometimes the truth can cause more damage than be helpful, and that's many people talk about. Oh, but I'm telling the truth. Well, but it's not to lie. That's different, right? It's not to tell the truth when the truth is going to cause more harm than good.
Then you ask, yes, the truth, but how useful was? What good did it bring? So the truth, right? But how useful was? Yeah. How good did it bring to those who heard it?
You know, we can think of Galileo Galilei, right? He found out that the Earth went around the sun, but when they asked him to it is the truth. But when they asked him to, because if he confirmed what he said, he was going to be burned at stake, he was going to be killed. He said no, because why? Because the truth will eventually come back, and it did. And there was no reason for him to be killed through an idea that he knew was truth, but it was not going to save his life, right? So he just said, okay, it's not truth.
And I know that we are kind of going around the bush in this topic, but I do consider it to be extremely relevant, and especially the days that we are living now, especially the days of that we are being pulled to move too far to the right or too far to the left in accordance with which we are already, the bag that we already carry, that is the magnet that will pull us more towards the right or more towards the left. And the suggestion is follow the suggestion of Buddha, right? Take the way of the middle. And the weight of the mirror is not between right and left, it's above. It's in the mirror is above right and left. It's collecting what's good in the right, it's collect what's good in the left, and eliminate all that it's not good. How do you measure that? Use it moral value, which is the moral content. Would use all the tools that you have available to make that distinction. And again, the Spirit's book, the teachings of Christ. Not religion, but science. The science of socialism was being social, using what we have learned from those great teachers that came to upgrade us morally. Okay, instruction from the spirits.
Okay. The Spirit's teachings, false prophets. Number 8. If they tell you the Christ is here, do not go there. On the contrary, be on your guard, because there will be many false prophets. Do not see the leaves. Do you not see the leaves of the fig tree beginning to fade? Do you not see its many shoots awaiting the time of blossoming? And did not Christ say to you, a tree is known by its fruit? Thus, if the fruit is bitter, you say that the tree is bad. But if the fruit is sweet and healthful, you say nothing that is this pure could have come from a bad tree. This is the way you must judge, my brothers and sisters. The deeds are what you must examine. If those who say they are vested with divine power are accompanied by all the signs of such a mission, that is, if they possess the highest degree of the eternal and Christian virtues, charity, love, indulgence, goodness that reconciles all souls, if in support of their words they add actions, then you can say, these are truly messengers of God. However, distrust sugary words, distrust the scribes and the Pharisees who pray in public squares, dressed in long robes. Distrust those who claim to have the one and only monopoly on the truth. No, Christ is not there. For those whom he sends to disseminate his holy doctrine and to regenerate his people by following example will be kind and humble of heart above all else. Those who by their example and counsels must save humankind, quickly heading toward its perdition and roaming tortuous roads. It will be above all else modest and humble. Run from those who display one atom of pride as if they were contagious lepers who infect everything they touch. Remember that all individuals bear on their brow, but more especially on their actions, the stamp of their greatness or decadence. Go forth, therefore, my beloved children, advance without hesitation, without ulterior motives, along the blessed course you have undertaken. Go forth always without fear. Courageously distance yourselves from anything that can hinder your progress toward the eternal objective. O travelers, you will be in the darkness and pain of trial for only a little while longer if you will allow your hearts to follow that gentle doctrine that has come to reveal to you the eternal laws and to satisfy all the aspirations of your soul regarding the unknown. Right now, you can give embodiment to those fleeting sights you have seen in your dreams, in which, being ephemeral, could only enchant your spirit without saying anything to your heart. Now, my dear ones, death has disappeared, giving way to the radiant angel you have come to know, the angel of rencounter and reunion. Now you who have well fulfilled the task imposed by the Creator, you have nothing more to fear of his justice, for he is the Father and always forgives his wayward children who clamor for mercy. Therefore, press on, advance without ceasing. Let your banner be progress, continual progress in all things, until you finally arrive at the happy destination where all those who have preceded you await. Louis.
Thank you. It's interesting, this message from Louis, which I don't know if it's St. Louis or another Louis. I think very often I think St. Louis signed as St. Louis, but so I don't know if this one it is St. Louis, which if St. Louis or another Louis. but we can always break down this, almost break down in two passages, in two messages over here. The first one is the idea identification of what we would judge to be false prophets, and brings again the statements of the analogy of the fig tree, right? The fig tree that was, in a sense, killed by Jesus when it was beautiful, have all those fantastic, wonderful leaves, but no fruit. And he made the statement, those who present only the beauty, but are infertile, or you'll be burned down. More and more we see that it goes absolutely together with the first message. It's just a communication, a continuation of the first message, especially these days of it's so easy for us to find any kind of message that we want in our computer, and we carry a computer in our pocket now, basically 24/7. We're being bombarded with communications, and we are being pulling very hard towards the right or towards the left, and sometimes it is indeed what we already have within us, what we already carry in our bag, that will create another tendency to move more towards right or left. And I'm not saying that right or left are right and wrong. I'm saying here clearly, and it's my opinion, if you move too far to one side or to another, both sides are wrong. And the good is in the middle, but not the middle parallel, but the middle above. Okay, so there is no judgment here of what side is good, because to me, both sides are bad. Anything that takes away from the middle is not good. Okay, but that's me. Again, it's me. And again, we are being bombarded with a lot of messages. They are beautiful. They are the very wonderful, beautiful tree with bright green leaves, and shows all the signs of being healthy and strong, but produces no fruit. Or if it does produce a fruit, it may be poisonous, it may be sour, it may be bitter, because a bad fruit cannot give, a bad tree cannot give good fruit. And what would we consider to be a poisonous fruit? What we would consider to be a sour or bitter fruit? Any messages that deviates from the moral teachings of Jesus Christ, which we understand as Spiritists to be the natural laws, the natural moral laws. Okay, so when the Spirit tells us they should possess the messages or the spirits, they should possess the highest degree of Christian and eternal virtues. Why eternal? We can phrase the word eternal here, because we carry with us, because it becomes, once you conquer it, a part of us as an eternal spirit. That's why we say that the moral values that we gain in our experiences, that will always be expressed. Reincarnation after reincarnation after incarnation, until we're no longer ready to incarnate anymore, we will possess those virtues. They are eternal with us, as opposed to the intellectual knowledge that we gain, that you always have it, but may not always be expressed. Our virtues, moral virtues, will always be expressed. And they are eternal because they're always a part of, as opposed to the things that we conquer over here and cannot carry with us. It may be the greatest negotiator, you can be do this modest finance individual over there, create honestly and rightly so a great fortune, which we should applaud, just as long as they use it properly, naturally, to utilize that talent and build progress is a wonderful thing. But once you go back home, it stays behind. While the virtues you carry with you always. That's why it says eternal virtues. The words are not here just by chance, which are charity, love, tolerance, and goodness, which will conciliate all hearts. This is another very important thing here. The messages that are being bombarded with from the right and from the left, are they conciliating us? Are they bringing us together? Are they bring the issues of charity, the issues of forgiveness, the indulgence towards the differences that we have amongst ourselves? Or are they really, on the contrary, creating divisions, creating a greater gap between right and left? Or they try to put us together and eliminate the differences, or live together with the differences? This is a very important concept for us to consider these days in our lives. So that's the first part of this message, is the issue of identification of what's valuable, what's not valuable, what should carry to us, what we should discard. And then comes the second part, with this, the proactive part. Now is a go forward, go and do it, go and accept what's that is good for the true profit, and put yourself to spread the goodness, to spread what is of value. Just before that, I'm sorry, that's also very important. One of the ways that we could have a reasonable, and I will say it's very reasonable, because we could make mistakes in our judgment. And yes, we do judge. Unfortunately, we have to judge. One of those make the judgments in the separation of the what we consider true and false prophets, true and false missionaries sent by Jesus to spread his teachings. One of the very important aspects that we'll see with all the true missionaries, the humbleness. No crisis among these, seeing that those he sends to propagate his sacred doctrine and regenerate his people will, above all, also follow his example by being gentle and humble of heart. I still need to find one of those missionaries who come and claim, Jesus sent me. I am here as the chosen by Christ to give you this message, to give you the teachings. I see that much on the contrary. I'm just a little one who is trying to learn and be the best that I can. It's with all my difficulties, trying to be a little bit better today and go displaying this essential characteristic of a true missionary, that is the humbleness and the gentleness. I still have to see one of those true missionaries who are aggressive, who are imposing, who are demanding. Why? Because it goes against the moral laws. It goes against the basis of the teachings of Christ. Go see if you find that in Mother Teresa, or in Gandhi, in Chico Xavier. You're not going to find it. So one of the ways that we can use tools that I can use to avoid those who are not from God, let's check the gentleness, the humbleness, Once the guy come and says, or the guy, or the woman, or the man, I am the one that Christ sent. I am a missionary. That's already a big red flag. And we are seeing that more and more these days. If anyone knows anyone that you want to consider to be a true missionary and goes out there claiming to be a missionary, please present it to me. I would like to meet that one. Remember that every person bears the stamp of the brow, and even more especially in the actions of their spiritual progress or their inferiority. So everything is in action. I can say as much as I say, but let's see, what do you do? Right? And then we start the second part of this message, which that now is the proactive. Go forward and do it. Go for it and walk. Go for it, pass it along. Go for it and without fear. Now that you have been exposed to all of this, now that you have the means of make those differentiations, accept what's of value and act on it. Because just accept what's of value, just eliminating what's not of value is one step. It is an essential step. But then again, as I always use, you may have a wall full of diplomas, but if you sit inside that room watching seeing those diplomas in the wall, it carries no value. If you don't put to work what you have gained, what you have learned, because you have not gained and learned only for yourself, you have gained and learned so you can pass it over, right? It is again okay, come back to it when I remember. The necessity that we have of not only better ourselves, but passing this over to the others that have learned, right? It's the little fish in the introduction of the book. Which book is that again, Ron? The Little Red Fish in Liberation? No.
It's, it is
Yeah,
the greater world.
the real one. It's the little fish that leaves the little pond, think that the little pond was the entire universe, and conquers the real ocean, and full of charity within him, and goes back to the little pond to teach the other fish that little pond is nothing but a little pond, that there is a whole ocean out there to be conquered, because his happiness cannot be complete without bringing the loved ones along, right? For us to conquer all the understanding of medicine and not be a doctor and trying to help people to improve the quality of their lives, what value have that knowledge of medicine? If you learn to be a great piano player, but you do not go out there and use our understanding to bring some pleasure, to elevate our moral values in that moment of beautiful music, what value does it carry? None. And that's the proposition of the second part of this message of St. Louis. Use the methodology that we suggest for you to separate the good from the bad, and now act on the good. Go on, be courageous. And it was over here, be courageous. That's another thing, especially nowadays, for us to stuck to this objective of passing along what you have learned. Takes courage, takes swim against the current, doing what is not the popular, what will be so easily accepted. How easily accepted was Christ on his time? How easily accepted has Spiritism being? Why would we get it easy? Why would it be different for us? Look at the the end of the physical life of the incarnation of most of the true missionaries. Look at how Paul, how Peter had to leave this physical body behind. Look at the sacrifice they have to make. Look at the sacrifice Chico have to make to bring to us 500 books of wonderful teachings. Why it would be different for us? We expect a special treatment? No, go without fear. Go and do what's really good, because the reward, the true reward, the eternal virtues are guaranteed. Even if you're going to face hardship, taking the courage and sticking to what's good. I think that's it here. Comments?
Actually, the little fish is the introduction of liberation. Yeah,
Liberation, yeah.
Yeah,
Liberation.
first chapter, liberation. Yeah.
Characteristics of the true prophet, number 9. Distrust false prophets. This recommendation is useful at all times, but especially at times of transition, when, like this one, the transformation of humanity is in the making, and the multitude of ambitious and scheming individuals set themselves up as reformers and messiahs. It is against such impostors that one must be on guard, and it is the duty of all honest persons to unmask them. You will undoubtedly ask how they can be recognized. These are their signs. The command of an army.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think this very tiny little paragraph is pretty much the reason that we, or at least I, taking so much time and banging on this topic of now. It's interesting that Spirit says over here that this time of transition, such as now, and then now, 1850, 1860 here, 1860, when this book was published. Now a transformation of humankind is occurring because of a multitude of those who are ambitions and scheming will promote themselves as transformers and messiahs. Now, 1860, no internet, no computers. The way of spreading any kind of ideologies would be to print, right? I think it's the only that I can think is only via printing, right, John? I don't think there's anything else but printing words, right?
Yeah, or talking, right?
Yeah, and talking, yeah. And even printing was not accessible to all. It was not easy to buy a newspaper, to get the news, and to pass those news farther away from where it was printed. And how far could those travel? And it did, but took a long time. You can imagine today. And if that time, what we're talking about of the period of transition, that obvious at the start of that time, and you can see that now there is an acceleration of this process. There is an acceleration of the separation of those who will deserve to exist in a world of that is better than what we live today, and those who will have to go back into worlds that are not so good. If the bombardment of false ideas was present at that time, can you imagine today the access that we have to communications, the need of being extremely careful. It is the moment indeed. And I think all of us, not as spiritists, but us living in this point today, are the workers of the last hour. I'm absolutely convinced that we are the work of the last hour, that we are the ones sealing, they were sealing on the scale, waiting for the master to come and invite us to work. And we have to make a decision now. We're gonna go. We don't have to go. We don't have to go, but we do accept to go. We go because we understand that the reward, the payment, is just and it's good. But are you ready to take that journey and mistrust the false prophets? I find it very interesting that at that time, they were talking to us about this, the period of transition. And you can only see the acceleration of this transformation that we are going through and the need for us to accept the call and get to work. Okay.
The command of an army is entrusted only to a competent general capable of leading it. So, do you think that God would be less prudent than humans? Be certain that he entrusts important missions only to those he knows are capable of fulfilling them. For great missions are heavy burdens that would crush individuals who are too weak to bear them. As in all matters, the master must know more than the apprentice. In order to enable humankind to advance morally and intellectually, individuals who are superior in morality and intelligence are required. That is why missions are always entrusted to spirits who are already very advanced after having completed their trials in previous lifetimes, and who now incarnate in this objective, with this objective. If they are not superior to the environment in which they must act, their efforts will be fruitless. That said, we must conclude that true missionaries of God must justify their mission by the ascendancy, virtues, and greatness, and the results and moralizing influence of their deeds. Let us draw a further conclusion. If by their character, virtues, and intelligence, they are either beneath the role they attribute to themselves or the personage under whose name they harbor themselves, they are nothing but historians of low rank who do not even know how to emulate their model. Another consideration is that most true missionaries of God are unaware of the fact they carry out the mission to which they have been called through the force of their genius. Second, by a hidden power that inspires and guides them without their knowing it and with no premeditated plan. In other words, true prophets are revealed by their actions. They are discovered by others, whereas false prophets present themselves as messengers from God. The former are humble and modest. The latter are proud and full of themselves. They speak with arrogance and, like all deceitful persons, always seem fearful of not being believed. We have seen some impostors passing themselves off as apostles of Christ, others as Christ himself. And what is shameful for humankind is that they have found people gullible enough to give credit to such turpitudes. Nevertheless, one very simple consideration should open the eyes of the most blind, which is, if Christ were to reincarnate on the earth, he would come with all his power and all his virtues, unless we were to believe that he had degenerated, which would be absurd. Now, the same way that if just one of God's attributes were taken away, you would no longer have God. If just one of Christ's virtues were taken away, you would no longer have Christ. Do those who present themselves as Christ possess all his virtues? That is the question. Observe them, scrutinize their ideas and actions, and you will realize that more than anything else, they lack the distinctive qualities of Christ, humility and charity, whereas they do possess what he did not, greed and pride. Moreover, notice at this very moment, there are many supposed Christs in various countries, just as there are many supposed Elijahs, St. John's and St. Peter's, and that obviously they cannot all be true. You can be certain that there are individuals who are exploring the credulity of others and who find it comfortable to live at the expense of those who listen to them. Therefore, distrust false prophets, especially during a time of renewal, because many impostors will say that they are messengers of God, from God. They provide themselves with a vain satisfaction while on the earth, but a terrible justice awaits them. You can be sure of that.
And that message from Erastus. And we know that Erastus is the spirit that was got in charge of supervision and teaching of mediumship in with Jesus. It was the director or the department of mediumship in among the spirits of truth. It gets hard to continue this over here without being extremely monotonous and repeating the same thing over and over and over again, because I think the messages that come to us, at least what I read from here, and please share with me what you read that is different, is always the same message over here. And again, I had spoken, and it was not my goal when I spoke of the eloquence of the more evolved spirits when they deliver message to us. They bring a truly eloquent way of communicating. They have which seems to be a complete domain of the language that they use, they use all the lexicon available in that language to provide messages in a very compact way. One of their characteristics, and that's another means of making distinctions here, is the motive of the spirits are quite frugal when with the words. They almost like they are trying to save words, and they have the ability to put in one paragraph what takes most of us 3-4 pages to say the same thing, which makes the reading more difficult because you have now to break down that very dense paragraph in order to understand things. It requires us to evolve morally and intellectually to be able to really understand them. Most of the messages of Emmanuel, most of his books of messages, what is it that he takes? He takes one sentence, sometimes not even a whole sentence, of one of the statements of Jesus, of one of the statements of Paul. He used a lot of Paul, but also John. And from that, he develops 2 pages. Because the richness of the density of the content in that one sentence. You can go to Our Daily Bread, all the books of Emmanuel, and you see that sometimes one little sentence, sometimes not even the whole sentence. And Emmanuel is able to develop 2 pages of teachings to us, kind of helping us to digest that very rich statement, as if Emmanuel acts to us as an enzyme, right? Making it easy for us to digest things that without that enzyme would take years and years to be digested. With the enzyme, can do in a matter of minutes, right? So it's almost like Emmanuel X and João de Angelis and some other evolved spirits help us to break down the density, the amount of content in those messages, because they have evolved morally and intellectually, because they will pass to us what they have, because it's not their job to lower themselves to our level, but it's their job to elevate us to their level, right? So it is sometimes hard and difficult. And it says over here, in order to lead humanity to advance, both morally and intellectually, we must have men and women of superior intelligence and morality. This is why spirits who are already advanced, having passed their test on the existence, are always chosen to those missions. So you can expect those who evolve themselves morally and intellectually bring less of what they are. Otherwise, we don't need them. Right? And it's all aspects. It's moral and intellectual. Because if they were not superior to the ambient in which they are required to act, their effect would be nullified. That's a very important statement here. And that's a characteristic of the higher spirits. Having conquered everything that they have conquered to their own work, they will present to us what's best to us. One of the ways that you can see, identified the more evolved spirits. And again, another character is the humbleness, the humility. Harold says something interesting. The false prophets, they need a very good marketing. They have to market themselves. They have to sell themselves. They have to have slogans that attracts us to them. Some of those marketing tools are very efficient. Some of those slogans are very catching. But the true prophets, they do not need a good marketing. Their messages speak for themselves. Not even them, their messages speak for themselves. So one of the characteristics of the true prophets, as I have said before, they don't declare themselves to be what they are. And I'm I'm not sure if they do not know, they do not consider themselves to be such, or they choose not to share that in humbleness. Not quite sure. If, let's say, Chico Xavier actually, I think, is so humble that I doubt he actually thought of himself as being a true missionary. No, I don't think so. But even if they did, they would not say it. That I can guarantee you. Even if they did, and that's not being hypocritical. That's not being false. And again, if it's true, if it's good, and if it's useful, what would be the usefulness of that? On the contrary, it would carry a negative aspect. So they would not share that even if they did believe in it. But I think most of the guys, they do not actually accept themselves as a true prophet, a true missionary, and stuff like that. They don't need a good marketing. They do not market themselves. They spread the good that they have learned through their own effort. And again, not a gift. They have conquered that. And now they come back to teach us, right? Like the little fish. Because the happiness is passing it to us. Because they cannot stay in the desert enjoying happiness by themselves. There is no happiness by oneself. Happiness, contentment is what we share with others. And again, we see Erasmus telling us here that this is the time of transformation. That is the time of making the choice of where do we stand, or where do we choose to stand, of who do we want to follow. The tools are here, the suggestions are here. We pick, are we more inclined to leave aside the things that leads us more towards the right and more towards the left. And we do have those things, all of us do, but we have to have a conscious decision here to say, in order to progress more, to evolve morally, which makes it difficult, I have to lose some to gain more. And most of us find very hard to lose some. In order to evolve morally, we have to unlearn some things that I have learned in the past that now carries no more value. We have to accept a new paradigm, and the paradigm that Christ presents to us. In order to do that, we're gonna have to leave some things behind. And that is what he meant when he told the young man who asked him how to conquer eternal life, said, leave everything that you have behind and follow me. That is the moral lesson for us here. I'm presenting you a new paradigm, so present things that carry much more value now in the eternal spirit. If you want eternal life, leave the things that are limited to this short passage and follow me. Are you ready to do that? Are we the work of the last hour? We are the work of the last hour. But we accept the invitation to go to the field and work. Okay, comments? We have 7 minutes. The next part is a little bit long. I think I'm going to stop here.
Yeah, and this passage is Erasmus talking about incarnated spirits, right? The next passage will be the discarnate spirits, the false prophets in the spiritual world. So this passage, he talks about spirits that are incarnated, true prophets, right?
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to ask this question.
Never an embarrassing question.
I can't find, what book is this we're reading?
Gospel.
Oh, the Gospel according to Spiritism.
What chapter?
It's chapter 21. There will be false Christs and false prophets. We start at item number 6. Do not believe all the spirits.
Item number 6.
We will start at number 6 and we stop at number 9. Next month, we will continue at item 10.
Thank you.
No, not a problem. Good.
So
Blind.
as Elmo mentioned in the beginning, next Sunday, we start again the study of the Mediums book. We finished last month, except the chapter about regulations and societies, which we didn't go over because it's not really very study material. And we'll restart the study of the Mediums book from the introduction next Sunday. Okay, so all those interested in having the more deep understanding of mediumship, please join us every third Sunday of the month. We are going to study the Mediums book. I think all of you here either cannot go or bought tickets to Divaldo, but anyway, the last day that tickets will be available is on Tuesday, because the United Nations requires us to send the list 1 week before the event. So if you are planning to, or you know someone that needs tickets or planning to buy tickets for someone else, the last day is Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday the 14th. All right, the event is on the 23rd at the UN. I think that's it. For those that the lecture yesterday by the United States Spiritist Federation was very interesting, by Anísio Rezende on the psychic and mediumship phenomena in the world, and you know, and things really. It's very more of the scientific study side of mediumship and psychic abilities. and I really recommend those that were missed to go back and watch it. Okay, is it Carol? You do a final prayer.
Sure. Thank you very much, Elmo. Thank you, John. And thank you, Sarita, for reading. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together today to share the studies of the Medium's book, chapter 21. Be vigilant and discerning regarding false communications, predictions, and also false prophets, messengers, and prodigies. Avoid extremes, especially during the times of transition. Look to the natural laws and eternal virtues of charity, love, tolerance, goodness, forgiveness, indulgence, and humility, and the teachings of Christ. Be proactive of the human heart and mind in expressing these attributes and moral qualities. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding us and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and may we share it with our loved ones and those who are in need. We pray for inner peace, and we pray for world peace, and especially for those who are suffering in the physical world and spiritual world. We pray for SGNY and all the Spiritist centers throughout the world. May they grow and expand and be inspired to help all those who are in need. As we close today, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we remind ourselves to go forth now as beacons of light, of love, and peace, and especially of charity. So be it.